Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vinyl Power. That's right, the podcast where we talk about our love for vinyl records and share it with you. Join us each week as we bring you the latest in vinyl releases, what's in our vinyl collection, and wrap it up with epic vinyl. That's right here, each and every week, with your hosts, the Reverend Jeff Kelly and Kurt Harris. Once again, welcome to Vinyl Power. Say what? Thanks, Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters. I don't know why I love that name so much. I just do. I mean, that's like the perfect name for a 60s, swim band, Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters with Shrimp Shack.
Shrimp Shack.
Oh, my goodness. I am the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we are Vinyl Power. And over there, all the way across the country in North Kakalaka is the great, the one, the only, the friendly neighborhood music man, Mr. Kurt Harris. How you doing, sir?
Sending out the love to all of our fans and all the people that enjoy music just as much as we do, because Vinyl Power is the happening thing, and it's the place to be every Thursday night with the Reverend Jeff and yours truly, the friendly neighborhood music man.
It's growing. It's definitely growing. We're getting new subscribers. We just started this club. We're only on, our 20th week of holding this club, and we've got 25 or 30 people that show up to it. So I'm happy with that, and we're going to keep rocking along. Hey, speaking of rocking along, let's see what got re-released this week on the vinyls. Yeah, people don't like to hear the word vinyls. Vinyls is like, a thing with people these days, and I don't quite understand if there's a vinyl record, then are they vinyls or are they records? Are they vinyl records or are they music vinyls?
Oh, some people do get their panties in a bunch about not saying vinyls.
Leaving groups and making other people mad to leave groups over them. It's horrible. Oh, good Lord. Speaking of good Lord, the piano becomes the teeth is releasing Wait for Love.
Well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. After that, Super Chunk is super chunky. What a time to be alive. And U.S. Girls in a Poem Unlimited. Yeah, okay. And not to be overshadowed, but the Porcupine Tree is re-releasing In Absentia and Deadwing. Finally, they won't be $1 million and I can afford them.
So true. And mine should be on the way.
There you go, man. Yeah, I am going to check out my local record shop. He has Stephen Wilson's last record when it came out, so I'm sure he'll have a copy of these as soon as he can get his little dirty fingers on them. So I'll have to go and see what kind of price ranges they're pulling here in America before I go out to the gray web to get my fingers dirty. Hey, sometimes to get a good deal, you got to get a little dirt underneath your fingers. Speaking about getting a little bit of dirt under your fingers, keep them the hell off my vinyls.
Keep them off my vinyls.
What the hell you been listening to this week, brother?
Well, coming off of last week, it was, and I said it was going to get a little more eclectic, and I did, and we spoke a little bit about progressive music and pop music and the differences, and how definitely progressive is a niche genre, and I completely understand why. It's complex. It's made of many different genres kind of welded together, sometimes in strange ways and in strange time patterns, and jazz and classical and rock and pop and all these things put together. But it probably is, I've always been a heavy metal guy, a hard rock guy, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Cream, those early bands leading into Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and the great hard rock of the 70s, Deep Purple. I love all of that. But I have a real appreciation for bands like Traffic. And here is Traffic's 1971 release, which is
that box always screws with me. It
it
does.
does, doesn't it? That's why I
It
took the
does.
cover off it so you could see it better. Yeah.
Yeah, that is absolutely crazy. It literally looks like it's a 3D box in your hand.
It does, doesn't it? And it's got the cool, like on the backside, definitely when you see the band, you know what you're getting. I mean, this is like Traffic Mark II, and basically with Traffic Mark II, it's the psychedelic of the psychedelic pop of the early Traffic meeting the more
Well, the early Traffic
style.
sat around and said, "Hey, how can we make this better? We need a black guy."
Well, and they got one.
That's right. That's exactly right. Traffic 2.0 brings the funk into what they were doing. At least I felt that way.
And I absolutely love this record. I mean, yeah, and that is totally a cool cover, no doubt. It does look like a box, doesn't it? And but the low spark of High Heeled Boys, basically what is that, like a 17-minute song on here?
Extravaganza didn't get a whole lot of radio play, but
well, it's 12 minutes and 10 seconds is what they have it listed here on the record. But every song on this record is good, and it was a good way to start. Like I say, this is 1971. Obviously, the cool cover. It's the 5th record by the band Traffic, and it did reach number 7 on the U.S. charts. But I think that was more on. Let's see, what was the other? Light Up and Leave Me Alone, which is a 5-minute cut. So that got on the radio a good bit. And I think that one hit like number 38 or something on the singles chart. So I think that one more drove the record probably forward to a very nice, I mean, number 7, nothing wrong with hitting number 7 on the charts. So that's where I started, was with the 5th album by Traffic, 1971. Low Spark of High Heeled Boys. And from there,
couldn't use that title today.
No, you couldn't. No, it would have too many different connotations today than it would have, at that point, when
too many snowflakes in the world these days.
Yeah, and of course,
what are you trying to say about High Spark Boys?
You would see sometimes back in the day, you would see the concert footage, and you'd see the guys with the 2 and 3 inch, platform shoes or whatever. So yeah, just a different time period. And then when I moved on from that, I jumped to 1977 and the second album by the Alan Parsons Project, I, Robot.
A-P-P, baby.
I really, I love this record. Not only the fact that Alan Parsons is an amazing engineer and the record just sounds beautiful, but every song, I mean, I like other Alan Parsons records. I have a few others, but this is my favorite. I think just the quality from top to bottom on this record is fantastic. And of course, he based the song cycle of this record on the Isaac Asimov I, Robot trilogy. And it reached number 9 in the US, number 30 in the UK. It's only 40 minutes long. It's not an exceptionally long record, but I don't think there's a track on here that's over 6 minutes, but they meld together very well. And I think probably I mean, iRobot's a great song, but I think the one that probably drove this album, like in terms of a single, was probably I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You. And if you remember, that's one they probably played quite a bit on the on the radio. So I think that was the one that probably drove it, to reach a nice charting number of number 9 in the US. And like I said, basically just a beautiful sounding record, and one that I can enjoy listening to anytime. Certainly not a hard rocking record, but a beautiful record. And I went from there, and basically staying in that ballpark. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, 1972, their third album, Trilogy.
I don't know that I've actually listened to that whole album. I know I've heard cuts from it, but I don't know that I've listened to both sides of that whole album.
It would be one to give a listen to. I mean, obviously you have Keith Emerson, basically at the top of his game as a keyboard artist, using Mellotrons and many different keyboards to really have a distinctive style that this album has. I mean, this album has, you know, I think it's one of the best songs ever written, honestly, and that's In the Beginning, little 4-minute ditty that's on here. Again, it's not a long album, but you have Hoedown, which is something that they opened their shows with for years, and I believe they even used it on like the old Wide World of Sports or something, the ABC's Wide World of Sports. They used music from this record in a lot of their promotional and like opening credits and things for that show. It's The Endless Enigma, Part 1 and Part 2, From the Beginning, an amazing song. The Sheriff Hoedown Trilogy, Living Sin, and Abaddon's Bolero.
Nice.
These guys were on top of their game. Of course, Greg Lake, you know, amazing voice. This was after he had left King Crimson to, you know, help form Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Carl Palmer, an amazing drummer. So a very different band, but a fantastic album. And for me, a lot of people like Tarkus, they like other ones. This is probably my favorite amongst the ELP records. And so that's where I went. And then I would only say it's in the same ballpark, but only a slight left turn because of the time period. A band that not many people know of, so I can't really talk about it charting. It did, but it charted like 151. This is Anathema. And this is from 1999. This is their 5th album. It's, for me, it's my favorite because
doesn't even look like it's been opened.
This actual album has not been opened, and it's because I have the special edition 5.1 CD. So that's actually what I DVD audio, I should say, and that's actually what I put in and listened to. I have not even opened this one yet. But being a vinyl fan, I have to own it on vinyl, and it'll probably be open tomorrow night.
We have to be careful with the reflections. We're picking up the figure skating in your background.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
So without permission from both NBC and the Olympics, you know, we only have an Olympic permission to record the figure skating, but you know, we have to have both. Sorry.
Well, no, and actually, we're kind of lucky if that's the part we're picking up, because if you saw the male figure that's actually introducing the figure skating, if you've ever seen the Hunger Games movies and how the
weirdo dresses,
the dresses and the hair, oh my gosh, I actually had turned the volume up a few minutes ago to find out if it was male or female, and it was male. I don't know if I was disappointed or surprised, but yeah, the Olympics have definitely been on. We're halfway through February, so we're moving along, and yeah, I have the Olympics on most every night. Unfortunately, it is the ice dancing. It's not my favorite part, but yes, I'll try to keep that to a minimum. But the thing about this record, for a band that hardly anyone knows about, Anathema has actually done a lot. They're a Scandinavian band, and they've worked with, yes, Steven Wilson. And as often happens when bands wind up working with Steven, but what was after this album, what often happens is they wind up changing their style or sound, and they became a much more progressive band with the albums that Steven mixed for them and other albums into 5.1 after this one. I actually prefer their sound here. It's very heavy. It's a heavy record, but it's a melancholic record in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it just shows a lot. And then the name, of course, is Judgment. It just shows a lot of ingenuity on this record. The band had changed somewhat by the time they got to this 5th record. They actually started off as like a death metal band. And so they went through a whole lot of change. And for me, this is my favorite period of the band, Anathema, and my favorite record by the band. And that's why I own the 5.1 and the vinyl. Whereas with a few others, I just bought the 5.1 mix that Steven Wilson himself did, and not the vinyl. But with this one, it was worthy of having it on. Actually, I haven't opened it, but if you even look right here, it even says
comes with the CD. Yeah,
it includes the CD. So there must be, I can't really feel it in there, but there must be a CD in there somewhere as well. But if you've never heard of them, and I guess the best thing I could say would be if you look this up on YouTube and give a little YouTube spin and see what you think, you might be pleasantly surprised. It's a good band and it is a good record. So that's what I was spinning this week. A lot of different up and down the years progressive material. And I have to say, Reverend Jeff, what records were you listening to during this February week?
Oh, well, I busted out my Aerosmith collection because it was getting a little dusty. And, you know, I don't like Aerosmith to get dusty in my collection at all. And it's been a month or so since I heard anything from Aerosmith. So I originally got out the greatest hits albums that I have from them. And I was like, you know, not today. This week, I'm listening to studio albums. Yeah. And that's exactly what I did. So the first thing I grabbed was Aerosmith Rocks. Now, you know, Rocks isn't a real heavy hitter for them. It was their fourth studio album. Came out in 1976. All Music described Rocks as having captured Aerosmith at their most raw and rocking. They really do. They hang it out there on this one. Sometimes not always for the greatest, but we had Back in the Saddle, Last Child, Rats in the Cellar, Nobody's Fault, and Home Tonight all hit the singles charts. So
that's a great record.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you know, it shows that their first impressions aren't necessarily their lasting impressions when it comes to some of these records. You know, sometimes it does take decades to come upon for them to really be appreciated for what they have. But, you know, Sick as a Dog, Get the Let Out, and Licking a Promise, you know, all of those are, there isn't really a bad track on this entire record whatsoever.
I completely agree with that. And actually, I own that one. And that's one that I really appreciate. And it may be one of the more least appreciated. You know, it's not obviously is not as much as the first one or Toys in the Attic are probably the two that most people probably look to. But I actually really like Rocks and Draw the Line a lot more than probably a lot of people.
Slash actually says that Rocks was the album that inspired him to learn guitar. Rocks was also one of Kurt Cobain's favorite albums, as he listed in his journals. In 2003, the album was ranked 176 on Rolling Stones magazine's list of 500 greatest albums of all time.
That's good. I'm glad to see it get some love.
Nikki Sixx refers to it frequently in his book as the Heroin Diaries.
That was probably about that point for them, yeah.
And Metallica leader James Hetfield has identified Rocks as well as Aerosmith to have been important influences in his music, stating that Aerosmith was a reason that he wanted to learn guitar. Sweet. You know, I mean, it really is. I mean, Aerosmith has been there since the beginning, and people really kind of forget that. Now, the next thing I did pick out of the lineup was exactly what you had talked about, was Draw the Line.
Love that record.
Yeah, it was the fifth studio album, released December 1st, 1977, right before Christmas time. It was recorded in an abandoned convent near New York City, rented out specifically for that purpose. The portrait of the band was drawn by the celebrity cartoonist Al Hirschfeld. According to AllMusic, the band shies away from the studio, experimenting and dabbling in different styles. Instead, they return to simple, straight-ahead, hard rock in this one. The singles that hit the singles chart, of course, was Draw the Line, Get It Up, Kings and Queens, and Milk Cow Blues. I mean, 35 minutes of music on this is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'm glad that I have the studio version of it. Most of these songs are on the greatest hits, but it doesn't matter. I just like to flip the studio album, you know, from one side to the next.
And I always love the fact that Kings and Queens on that album is a bit of a departure from what you're used to with Aerosmith, but I still think it works. And I think it's one of the things that really makes that a great overall record.
Kramer explained in 1997 that Kings and Queens, the LP's second single, was a typical session at the Cenacle. It was recorded in the chapel with the pews out, the drums were on the altar, and Jack was on the confessional hitting the snare drum by himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's freaking awesome, man. So that's what I pulled out of the closet next was Draw the Line. And of course, I had to grab out of my collection here what Aerosmith seems to think is their absolutely best foot forward, and that's Get Your Wings. If you listen to Steven Tyler, if you listen to Steven Tyler says that this album is Aerosmith at its best.
I agree completely.
The second studio album by Aerosmith released March 1st, 1974. The first to feature the production from Jack Douglas, who produced the band's next 4 albums, 3 singles, and released from the album after that. The singles, almost every single song on this record hit the singles chart. Same Old Song and Dance, Lord of the Thighs, Spaced being the only one that didn't, Woman of the World, SOS, Train Kept the Rolling, Seasons of Wither, and Pandora's Box all managed to hit and slam the singles chart. It was like I wasn't even alive and they were still on the singles friggin' charts, you know, when I was born. It was that was and honestly, in his autobiography, Steven Tyler writes that Seasons of Winter had been germinating in his head for a long time, but other more sinister tracks, like The Lord of Thighs, came from a seedy area where he recorded the album. Lord of the Thighs was about a pimp and the wildlife out in the street. Tyler also plays the piano on Lord of the Thighs, and Kramer's opening beat is very similar to the one that he would tap out a year later in Walk This Way. And that is very true. They have a very, very similar hard line between Walk This Way and Lord of the Thighs. So that, my friend, that is,
I think also Steven Tyler on Seasons of Wither, I believe he had said that that was his favorite song that he had ever done with Aerosmith. And I agree. I think I love that album. I completely love that entire record, you know, all the way down to Pandora's Box.
Yeah, they're just,
I love that record.
You know, I listened to Space and I think to myself, why didn't it solo? It should have. There's no reason that Space didn't solo off of that record. But yeah, for sure, man. That's exactly what I was jamming to, was the Aerosmith. Hey, let's take a minute to say hello to all of our friends who are out there in the live chat room this evening.
Hello,
there's a few of them out there
in the real world.
Hello, Mr. Ginn. Yeah, got the devil's horns
Mr.
up, rocking, baby. That's right. Lance Windsor. Hey, dude, he's got that moderator tool out there. You watch that guy. He knows what's going on. Wow. And we got Wid34. How you doing there, Chief? Glad you're with us as well.
Awesome, Wid. Glad you're hanging out. I know I'll see you tomorrow night.
Rod Dupree. He's always in the place to be.
Always in the place to be.
Always. And,
always supporting us, man. Great support. I mean, what else can you say, dude, right?
You're a hardcore fan base like none other, and I love you guys all. I really do. Y'all know I'll do anything for you. Really. The next show will be coming up Saturday with Reb and Reno. We'll be doing What You're Watching, and we decided on The Ritual, which is on Netflix. So we'll be reviewing The Ritual. And you'll find out what Reverend Reno's been watching this week. Hey, speaking of what we've been watching this week, I got to ask you, buddy, what you bring along for your Epic record this week?
Well, Epic record definitely steps away from where I was at, but there's a good reason for that, which you will actually see shortly. And it's ZZ Top, Trace Hombres. Yes, in no way is this anywhere connected to the.
However, it is an epic record. I have this one.
Yeah,
this was one of the first ones I bought back in my collection when I restarted my collection.
And yeah, in no way is this obviously connected to the other the progressive record stack that I was going through in the week, but there's a reason for that. I mean, all right, so 1973, it's their third record. It's a very short record. It's only 33 minutes of music, so it's a short record. It did hit the charts. It came in at number 8, so it charted nicely. Short tracks, but really each one is a gem. I mean, when you think about the record, starts off side 1, Waiting for the Bus, and obviously, as you know, goes right into Jesus Just Left Chicago. And you got Master Sparks, which was was one of these singles that charted highly. And then obviously one of their biggest ever on side 2, LaGrange. But the whole record is amazing. I mean, the songs are really short, but they stick with you. In terms of stick with you, there is a specific reason why I made this my epic record. And it's not just how good the record itself is, how much I enjoy ZZ Top as a band, that they're fun, and they're just listening to them, basically has to put a smile on your face somehow or another. It's that this is the gatefold. And I think this is the best gatefold in the history of music. Because when you open this, you get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Mexican fiesta, man.
Get that feast. And I just think that is one of the best looking feasts I have ever seen in my life.
I've seen a lot of record rooms, and this is always framed open and on the wall.
Look at that feast. Look at that. I mean, there's all kinds of peppers and different, there's citrus fruits back there to squeeze on your yummies.
Yeah. Oh.
There's ice cold beer that the head is running down the side of the glass, and nachos and the peppers and the thing of cheese. And
you must be hungry.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, when you look at this, you just wonder, where can I go and get this particular feast in front of me? And I will tell you that I saw on Facebook maybe a year or so ago a guy, and it was one of the music pages devoted to albums or something, and a guy put up some pictures, and he was a fan of this record, but not just for the record. Like me, he's a huge fan of this picture, and it was his birthday, and his wife had done all she could to recreate.
Oh, I remember seeing that. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I did see that, and we're in the same group. Absolutely, I remember seeing it, and she did a really good job of it too. Yeah. It was close.
It was really close.
She even had the picture of the big-breasted Spanish lady in the background with the hard nipples, if I remember right.
Exactly. No, exactly. You saw it. So, yeah, I always thought about that, and I thought, there's a good wife right there trying to recreate. This is going to put 10 pounds on you. It's probably going to make you impossible to be around for about 3 days. But you know what? At the end of the day, it is worth it. And that is why, as great as a record as this is, great as the music is, that inside cover just makes this one of the epic records of all time.
You want to dig it out just to stare at the gatefold.
I have, yeah. I put it on. I'm like, I love this record. The music is great, but I just sit here and stare. And I love Mexican food. I wouldn't say it's my exact favorite, but I look at that particular feast, and I'm like, that has to be whoever ate that is just one of the happiest people.
I always have a hard time getting past the big-breasted girl in the back with the hard nipples. I mean, the food's good and all, but she's okay too, I mean, I always kind of zone back there. No, not at all.
No, it doesn't hurt. And so, having said that, and I hope I know you ate a little while ago. I'm glad you ate before I put that.
Yeah, we got leftovers sitting right over there too. Because you know what the problem with having sex with a Chinese girl is, right?
What is that?
You're just horny an hour later.
Oh my gosh!
Sorry, that's an old food joke that we turned into a dumb men joke. But
I'm sure you're right about that.
Hey, yeah, my epic record. I stuck, of course, with Aerosmith because why wouldn't you? And here I am, I guess I was about 12. I'm in the mall, and I'm running down to the Sam Goodies. You remember Sam Goodies?
Oh, I remember Sam Goodies.
80s?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Running down to the Sam Goodies in the mall, and I'm like, hey, man, I need that new tape by that I don't know who. It's Toys in the Attic. I got that new tape. Toys in the guy's like, new tape? What are you talking about? Yeah, exactly. Aerosmith. Toys in the Attic has Walk This Way on it. And of course, when I was 12, Aerosmith teamed up with one of the greatest rap groups, hip hop groups of all times with Run DMC. And we got Run DMC meets Aerosmith's Walk This Way and I knew about Aerosmith, but I didn't realize that Toys in the Attic was as old as it actually is. The third studio album of the American rock band Aerosmith, released April 8th, 1975. Whoops. That was 2 years after the old Rev was born, so I was about 10 years late. First single release, of course, was Sweet Emotion. Then later, May 19th, Walk This Way hit the singles, and then the final release later on that year. Sorry, lost my place for just a moment. Toys in the Attic, Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion, and You See Me Crying all hit the singles chart. When Toys in the Attic was released April 1975, it eventually made number 11 on Billboard's Top 200, a full 63 positions higher than Get Your Wings. The single release of Sweet Emotion became a minor hit on the Billboard Hot 100, reaching number 36 in 75, and Walk This Way reached number 10 on the Hot 100 in 1977, just a couple of years later. The album also introduced the contemporary audiences to rock and roll cover The Big 10-inch.
The Big 10-inch.
Record. Come on over and take my Big 10-inch.
Playing the blues.
Yeah, buddy. For his review of Toys in the Attic, Stephen Thomas Erlewine called the album's style a mix of Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones riffs, and said it was filled with songs about sex with a different style than there ever was before. Greg Kot called the album a landmark of hard rock. For the Blender magazine review, Ben Mitchell called Toys in the Attic cocaine influenced and mentions the songs Toys in the Attic and Walk This Way. Imagine that. Hey, so there you have it, man. Yeah. Toys in the Attic has been in my arsenal since I was 12. I've owned it on everything from vinyl to 8-track to cassette to CD to MP3 to FLAC to Wave. I'm probably on reel-to-reel at some point. I did have a reel-to-reel setup when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure we had a whole Aerosmith reel. I don't believe it had like a whole bunch of albums. I think it had all the best songs on it. Mini disc, digital audio tape, that.
That.
I had this on everything you could imagine. It's kind of like the White Album. I had the White Album on all those things too, and I refuse to buy it now. Like every time I see the White Album up for sale in the record shop, it's always like $16, and I'm like, I don't want to spend another $16 on the damn White Album. Oh, but listen to that. It's that sad going away music. You know what that means, Mr. Kurt.
I do know what it means. It means we have successfully had another fantastic Vinyl Power show.
That's right. You can find us on Facebook is the easiest place at Vinyl Power Podcast. You can tag us in anything. We'll see it. We'll actually reply to it. Why don't you tell us what you've been listening to over on our page? Go over there, give it a like. Tell us what you've been watching, and we'll share it with the main fan page if you do that. Thanks for everybody for watching. We'll have Wid34 back in a few weeks. You know, he's always welcome back on the show. And thanks everybody so much for watching. On a Saturday for What You Watching, and Wednesday nights for the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Yes, sir. The old Reverend is a busy podcasting for. Thanks to Captain Geach and the